Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. And I'll be very honest, Omega Sentinel looks absolutely insane, which is why it's such a shame the balancing program exists. Because we do need to keep that at back of our minds whenever we're talking about a champion that actually looks great. There is absolutely no guarantee that Omega Sentinel is still going to be as great of a champion 6 months down the line. So whatever I say in this video, keep that in mind. And no matter how amazing the champion looks, it's just very hard to commit any significant amount of time or money to the acquisition of a champion that, unfinished, yet to be balanced, which really frustrates me because I like virtually everything about this champion. It looks really, really nice, which is all the more reason I'm more skeptical that she might not look so nice 6 months down the line. Right, let's break down everything we know about her. Right, so she's going to have big burst damage on level 3 as kind of like a party piece, but I don't think that is going to be the best way to play her. Let's start with the most important ability, arguably speaking. She's not a robot, but she has robot immunities, almost. Except it's not full-on immunities. She just takes 100% less damage from bleed and poison, and also doesn't suffer regeneration rate reduction. On top of that, whenever inflicted with bleed or poison, she gains a healing buff, healing over 20% of her missing health over 10 seconds. That means with Liquid Courage Double Edge, you're gonna have an insane heal. If you thought Null is healing well with Liquid Courage Double Edge, then Omega is gonna heal way more, way quicker. She could potentially be pretty much the most Liquid Courage Double Edge friendly champion in the game. Because you'd have 2 debuffs active at all times and full regeneration rate. That means 2 full stacks of willpower at all times. Basically every fight would be something like you're fighting against Mr. Fantastic. And obviously then, if you have suffered any damage and enter the next fight with like half of your health, then you get additional regeneration buff on top of you. That's crazy. That is really crazy. That's so much healing for all Liquid Courage Double Edge players. Now we also need to take a look at her Incinerate. All of Omega Sentinel's Incinerate debuffs deal 3,166 energy damage over 6 seconds. This effect also removes perfect block chance, yada yada yada. But against all mutant champions, you inflict plasmas. And again, that's a great change because there is not a single mutant champion that's immune to plasma. So her damage over time effects are always safe, which is again very, very reassuring. Moving further, she does have basically 3 modes, 3 pre-fight abilities that are fairly easy to shift in between. So you can select whichever one you want to start with, and then you alternate to the next one by dropping a heavy attack. Also, dropping a heavy attack pauses those debuffs for, I believe, 7 seconds. So you can easily get all 3 of these active at any given fight. And if you have 3 debuffs active, then you start inflicting Incinerates instead. And you can pause those. That means you can build up to 20 Incinerates, because that's the max amount of stacks, and keep them up indefinitely. Which again is quite crazy thing to do. You can also, as I mentioned, pause them with finishing a combo with a light attack or dropping a heavy attack. On top of that, to inflict these debuffs in the first place, you can either use level 1. If you don't have any debuffs, it's going to inflict 2 debuffs on whichever weapon you're at. Or if you do have the debuffs active, then level 1 is going to refresh them instead and increase their duration, which again makes it kind of like even more convenient. You could ramp them up very highly with a very long duration. And you can inflict these debuffs with a second medium attack as well. So that feels perfectly reasonable, perfectly kind of like organized. Obviously, there will be some fights where it's going to be quite tricky to keep those debuffs off, especially if you can't stun, for instance, or you can't parry. But that all will be subject to playtesting. She also will have access to armor buffs, up to 10 of them, and she's going to have easy time building them up. Basically, whenever you repeat the same basic combo hit, or when our opponent repeats the same basic combo hit, you gain an armor up. So if you go with medium 4 light combo, you can probably gain at least 2, maybe 3 armor up, depending exactly how that interaction works. And that amount is doubled against mutant champions, because obviously she's a mutant hunter. Here we can see that we can refresh all of those debuffs, and there's debuffs, I didn't go over it. It's Cowardice, which obviously completely neutralizes Kitty Pryde. It's Tracking, that can bypass Miss, and it's also Heal Block, that, you know, is just kind of nice to have that Heal Block debuff. What else do we need to mention? Again, as I said before, if you have all 3 debuffs active, then whenever you would activate one of those non-damage over time debuffs, you activate Incinerate instead, and you can stack up to 20 of those Incinerates or Plasma against mutants. Now we also have these adaptive body abilities, and this is largely defensive. And she could potentially also be a very big nightmare on the defense. Omega Sentinel's adaptive body grants her immunity to Nullify, Stagger, and Fate Seal, which again is a huge piece of utility, becoming more and more important, and again just another reason why she already looks like an amazing champion. Her ability accuracy cannot be reduced against mutants, which obviously makes her domino-proof and makes her a good Magneto killer, let's say. Gain an indefinite armor up buff whenever either champion makes contact with the same basic attack twice in a row. Went over that. That armor up is also quite hefty. So if you have 10 of those active, then you have like 9,000 something armor rating. So that is very tanky champion there. When struck at 10 or more armor up buffs, consume all armor ups, purify any stun debuffs, and gain a 100% chance to auto block for 2 seconds. This auto block can trigger parry, and while defending, it only requires 5 armor ups. That is going to make her quite tricky on defense. In addition to the fact that you can't nullify the armor ups, and if she does get to auto block, then, you know, you're going to get parried and wrecked. There will be obviously ways how to play around it, or you're going to have to play around hers in a similar fashion, like you have to play around Sentinel by just, you know, mixing up your combos and things like that. But yeah, she could potentially be quite annoying champion, because falling for that would be very, very punishing. Also, when Omega Sentinel would auto-block a hit, inflict an Incinerate debuff or Plasma. So that just adds more salt to the injury, so to speak. What I wanted to talk about here, level 1, I mentioned. Level 1, basically, if you don't have any of your regular debuffs active, you inflict 2 debuffs of whatever weapon, whatever kind of like mode you're on. If you do have them active, then you refresh those non-damaging debuffs and increase their duration by the amount of consumed armor ups. Whenever you activate a special attack, you can consume up to 5 armor ups. So you can increase the duration of those debuffs by like up to 5 seconds each time you refresh them. So it means after the first time you use level 1, they'll already last like 13 seconds, then 18 seconds, so on and so forth. And the last thing, I think that was it on the level 1. And level 2, again, can consume up to 5 armor ups and will inflict Incinerates or Plasmas, pending who you're fighting against. So up to 6 Incinerates there, basically. And it also can trigger through block, which is, again, just going to be more annoying thing when fighting against her. Level 3 basically just kind of consumes all the Incinerates and can do quite large burst damage. So they're going to be an effective fight finisher, I suppose. But I don't think many people will use level 3 for many different, for often, so to speak. Also, Awakened ability is crazy useful. So she gains passive energy resistance for each personal non-damaging debuff on the opponent. So you can get massive armor and insane energy resistance. So getting like 2,000-3,000. It's beautiful there. It's very good start. But that's not it. Omega Sentinel's special attack 2 inflicts an additional Incinerate debuff for each promise effect on the opponent up to maximum of 5. Now that's even better. So if you face mutant champions, your level 2s are going to be significantly more powerful. And then for each armor up that is consumed by a special attack, there's a 50% chance for Omega Sentinel to gain a new armor up, which means you'd have much easier time keeping up your armor ups at all times. Which is great. Man, she does look so good. I'm so annoyed because she looks so good. And the balancing is the thing. I really, really hate the balancing program. Okay, the synergies. So synergy with Sentinel. Omega Sentinel, Incinerate and Plasma debuffs inflicted by medium combo enders instantly power drain the opponent for 5%. It's very interesting because not the heavy attacks. because with heavy attacks you could infinitely kind of like cheese in some matchups and things. But medium combo enders, it still can be useful. I don't think it's the most important synergy, but there will be situations where it can help. Definitely up against like all or nothing. Then knocking down an opponent removes one prowess effect from them. So Sentinel is going to be, even better option against mutant champions, where it is important to get rid of prowess effects. But again, one prowess effect, it might not be potent enough. We'll see about that, because, Howard the Duck has a synergy where you remove all of the prowess effects and then gain them for yourself. Or War Machine's level 1 removes, like, a whole bunch of them. With a single heavy attack, just the one at a time, we'll see if it's effective enough. Alpha and Omega. This one isn't too special for most part. You just gain more potent self-repair, and Professor X and Magneto can ramp up quicker. So, it's nice. It's not horrible, but... Now, Omega Sentinel with Captain Britain or Psylocke, whenever the opponent's inflicted with a cowardice debuff, remove one prowess effect from them. This obviously can be quite helpful for her. Just to combat more mutants. Outside of like Kitty Pryde and stuff like that. Psylocke, knocking an opponent down with a heavy attack, grants Psylocke 2 Psy charges. Again, it's kind of nice, but I don't think it's that important. And Captain Britain, landing a critical hit on the last hit of Special 1, grants an unblockable buff during next special attack. So basically her special attacks will be unblockable after the very first one. And, that could be quite useful for Captain Britain. Now with... Nimrod, Omega Sentinel, any hit from the opponent's special attacks does not make contact with Omega Sentinel. She inflicts them with a shock passive, dealing 15% energy damage over 6 seconds. That's quite neat. You will just be able to shock the opponents throughout the fight quite frequently. And she doesn't have shock on her base kit. So, it's just probably going to enable her to do some different fights that she otherwise couldn't. On top of that, Nimrod has a synergy with Omega Sentinel that will let him inflict Incinerate if opponent is shock immune, and that is quite huge for Nimrod too. So that's a definitely worthwhile synergy to keep in mind. And this is potentially the best one. For each armor up consumed during a special attack, inflict armor break debuff, removing armor and rating by 10% for the duration of that special attack. So you can have even more potent special attacks and even more damage, and that will also give you access to more debuffs and ability to get rid of armor ups on several different champions. So I do think this could be quite handy. All that being said, again, it's such a shame balancing program exists, because again, I must remind it to everybody, because no matter how good she looks right now, and there is a chance she's not going to look that good 6 months down the line. And when I look at this champion in particular, unfortunately, I think there is quite a big chance that they will hinder her, because she looks really good. Starting forward from now on, every champion that looks insane, there's even bigger chance that they might not be that insane 6 months down the line. And the problem is we do not know. Kabam does, in fact, have quite horrible track record with messing champions that, need not mess with. Not updating champions that do need to mess with. Previously, we had Invisible Woman. They deemed her fine. She clearly wasn't. They said that Ronin was fine. He clearly wasn't. And then he got buffed even later on. And... they said Namor's regen's too potent when it never was. And they reduced his ramp-up speed, which, again, made absolutely no sense. What I'm trying to say is, there is a chance that they're not going to touch her. Obviously, there is. But Kabam does have an atrocious track record with the balancing. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But Omega Sentinel right now does look good. I would like to have her, but I'm just not willing to chase her knowing that she might be changed. I really do think she could be a very good addition to the roster. Let me know what you guys think, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.
did with. Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about